Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Gonzo Experience. I am David Gonzo. I'm ready for another great episode every Wednesday morning for almost 6 years, folks. I brought you the most, who I think are the world's most incredible, inspiring thought leaders, entrepreneurs, getting real and raw and vulnerable with us, telling their story, how it impacted them to where they are today so that they can help others. Today, I have on the show not only a great guest, I'm going to validate that he's just a great human. I've had a few conversations with him, and he's just a heart-centered human making the world a better place every day. I know it. Brian Bogert, welcome to the Gonzo Experience.
I'm happy to be here, man. I know we've circled around this a couple of times, so must have meant the universe wasn't ready for us before today. So I'm excited, brother.
That is very true. And Brian's being very nice. Actually, there was 2 times that I messed up my schedule, and Brian showed up, and I didn't. And I rarely do that, but he was very cool about it. So thank you for that, Brian.
It's all good, bro.
Yeah, no, you're great. So Brian, I'm going to read a little snippet of your bio here. So because I usually don't read the bios anymore, but yours on your website it's one of the best I've ever read. So I want to read it, and then we're going to get into your journey. And Gonzo family, I want you to listen to the end because Brian's got a great journey, great story, and he's doing some great things with his life, with helping others. And as always, you're going to walk away with some nuggets, some things that you can do right away in your business, in your life. This is not just theory and fluff and stuff. Like we with the Gonzo Experience, as you may know, we try to say, like, have you walk away like, wow, there are 2 or 3 things that I can do like right now. Thank you to the Gonzo podcast. So here we go, Brian. I'm gonna read your podcast, so we're gonna dig right into it. So Brian Bogert, just like yogurt, just in case you're remembering, Brian Bogert. This is his bio. It's so cool. There is a sleeping giant in every human, awakening those giants within and turning them into legends by helping individuals grab just what's out of their grasp is Brian's purpose in this life. Brian is a heart surgeon without the blade. He does not start outside with what you need to do. He starts inside with who you are. In a world that is disconnected, Brian is revolutionizing how individuals and leaders and entrepreneurs deeply connect with their authentic selves to achieve the very best version of themselves. As a human behavior and performance coach, speaker, and business strategist, Brian teaches disruptive strategies and how to create sustainable growth and lasting change personally and professionally. His life philosophies on how to embrace pain to avoid suffering, people before profits, and who before what has helped individuals and companies discover and activate their limitless potential. You can literally feel Brian and his team's authenticity, and you will be moved by their vision to impact 1 billion lives by 2045. I love that. What a great BHAG, big, hairy, audacious. Go, Brian. So Brian, thank you for writing that. That's one of the best bios I've ever read. It's not talking about like the awards that you won and where you went to college. It's just talking about like who you are and how you can help people. So thank you for that. So Brian, enough of me talking. Let's give us your story, your journey. How did it all start out to make you the great human that you are today, helping others?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll also take that as a great compliment. I don't necessarily call myself a great human. I'm just a human trying to do the best I can like everybody else. But I will start with giving you a little context on who I am beyond the story, because I think it's really important. Again, given everything we do, it's focused on the who. For me, being a husband and father is the absolute #1 role that I play. It's also the only thing binary in my world, meaning that our mission to impact 1 billion lives and everything else that I've got going on will all go away if my wife and my kids are not good. I'm deeply fascinated by humans, the overall human experience, what drives human connection and performance. And so I am always putting myself in a position to be intellectually, emotionally, spiritually curious around the things that drive who we are, because there's way more in common than apart. And so who I am is someone that likes to stay in movement and stay connected. But what you'll understand through my story is that I've had to really overcome things in a unique way, and also deal with a deep level of pain and healing to understand how do I see myself more clearly so I can move faster with less effort. My purpose in life, just to be clear, is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs. And so I get to fulfill my purpose through the bio that you read by the ways that we actually interact and engage with people. But I'm going to ask you and everybody else who's listening for just a second to just close your eyes. Unless you're driving while you're listening to this, keep your eyes open. Please be safe. And you'll understand even more why that's relevant in a second. But if you can just close your eyes, I'll tell you when to reopen them. I want you to imagine going to a store, having a successful shopping trip, breezing through the checkout line, walking out the front door. You've got a pep in your step. Everything's gone smooth that day, and you are ready to see what is ahead for you. You look up and you feel the breeze blow through your hair. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. You get to your car and you start to fumble in your pockets for your keys. And right before you get the car door unlocked and opened, you turn your head and you see a truck barreling 40 miles an hour at you, right at you with no time to react. Go ahead and open your eyes. That's where this portion of my story begins. You can open your eyes, David. That's where this portion of my story begins. I said, go ahead and open your eyes, and you were the only one that
I thought you said don't open your eyes.
I'm really hoping that others heard me say it too, because otherwise you're going to sit here as the host.
I heard don't. So yeah.
But that's where this portion of my story begins. My mom, my brother, and I went to our local Walmart to get a 1-inch paintbrush to complete a home project. And anybody who's known me for more than 2 minutes, or who's listened to this for more than 2 minutes, knows that I walk fast, I talk fast, I've got an energy and excitement for life. So it wasn't a surprise to anybody that I was the first one to the car. But this was back in the days before there was key fobs. So I had to wait for my mom to literally reach into her purse, grab the keys, stick it in the door, turn it so we could go on with our way. And in the time that we were waiting there, a truck pulled up in front of the store and parked, and the driver and middle passenger got out. Passenger all the way to the right felt the truck moving backwards. So David, he did what any one of us would do, scooted his foot on the brake, but he instead hit the gas. Now, probably in the midst of his shock, right, and moving over in a quick element, all of that energy and emotion, there was so much force going down, but he missed the brake, and he hit the gas. So combination of shock and force threw him up on the steering wheel, up on the dashboard, and before you know it, he's catapulting 40 miles an hour across the parking lot right at us with no time for me to react. We were in an end spot. So he goes up onto the median in the end spot, goes up to the tree in the end spot, hits our car, knocks me over, runs over me diagonally, tearing my spleen, leaving a tire track scar on my stomach, and continuing on to completely sever my left arm from my body. Mom and brother watched the whole thing happen. It was August 10th, 1992, 115-degree day. They look down and they look up and see my arm laying 10 feet away in the parking lot. Fortunately for me, and I have to always share this part because I am forever indebted to this woman, my guardian angel was there that day too. There was a nurse that walked out of the store right when that took place, and she saw the literal life and limb scenario in front of her. And I'm forever indebted to her for choosing to go into action to have a chance of helping me versus turning her head and going on with her day, which could have been just as easy for her to do. Because if it was not for that decision on her part, I either wouldn't be here with you today, or I'd be here today with a cleaned up stump. That's just the reality, because she not only stopped the bleeding on the main wound, but she instructed innocent bystanders to run inside, grab a cooler, fill it with ice, so my detached limb could get on ice within minutes. Again, if it wasn't for this woman, I wouldn't be here, or I'd be here with a cleaned up stump. So I know that many people weren't expecting it to go there today. Yes, I have a very unique story that was transformational in shaping me. But what I've also realized in all my time of doing this, brother, is that every single one of us has a unique story. What's important is that we pause long enough to extract the lessons from those stories and then become intentional in how do we apply them in our lives. And so I'll tell you 2 primary lessons, and then we'll see where the heck this goes. The first is I learned very early not to get stuck by what has happened to me, but instead get moved by what I can do with it. And I've learned in all this time that moved people move people. So part of my goal is just to move as many people as possible, because the only way we get to 1 billion is through collective impact with moving through the ripple effect. One of the other core lessons that I learned very early was this concept of embracing pain to avoid suffering. And I believe that when this is done right, that's also when we gain freedom. And so it's all these reasons that I was able to apply throughout my life the variety of opportunities to not only add impact into people's lives, how my business partners and I scaled our last business to over 15 million with the span of a decade, and now we're flipping all of these concepts on their head to really elevate and empower individuals to be exactly who they are, and knowing that we can build a world that people can stand on their own 2 feet, not only confident, but convicted in who they are, knowing the world won't just accept them, but will embrace them for who they are. That's why I'm doing what I do today, because I see a lot better world for my kids and my grandkids.
What a story. What a story. Well, thank God for your guardian angel. That's truly amazing. And to think if she wasn't there, what would have happened, right? Don't even want to think about that. Thank God she was there. So, and how it shaped your journey today. Obviously, you're a very empathetic, compassionate person who wants to help 1 billion people around the world. So, so let's get into how you do that. So, a lot of the Gonzo family here, we are small to medium sized business entrepreneurs. We've reached a certain milestone, celebration, pop the champagne. Let's go to the next level. And how do we do that as you talked about when I read your bio, not only professionally but personally, right? A lot of entrepreneurs will sacrifice their mental, their physical health while building a successful business. Maybe relationships get sacrificed. Maybe give us some context of how could what are some things that we could do, building blocks along the way to make sure that we're taking care of not only our business, but our relationships, our health, mental, physical, et cetera.
Yep. Great question. I believe, and I know this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but hear me out for a second because I'll take it deeper with more specifics. But I genuinely believe that the greatest thing every single one of us can do as individuals, as people, as business owners in particular, is to invest in raising our level of awareness. Here's the reality. Our minds process 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40. So that's often why people feel like they're victims, like life is fate, like they have no influence or control over their destinies, or why we may constantly be seeking this empty path that never actually allows us to feel connected and whole in who we are. And so until we go through a systematic process of moving the unconscious to the conscious, the unaware to the aware, it's going to feel that way. But we truly can put ourselves into a different position because we cannot be intentional with what we're unaware of. What I'm a believer in is that in business, in particular, and in life, how do we actually create an integration in all the things that are important? So I'm a big believer in building a life of intentional alignment that can become self-regulating over time. And that's how you truly can live with no limits. But that requires a variety of different things. Okay. So I'll hit on some different concepts in a minute, but I'm going to directly answer this question right now. I believe absolutely that the majority of us believe that we are stuck in life because we've got the wrong strategy and tactics given where we are in that life, right? So if we get to a $5 million business or a $2.5 million business, the thought process is, well, I don't have the same systems. I don't have the same strategies. I don't have the same tactics that got me here that are going to get me there. There is truth to the importance around strategy and tactics. They are critically important in leveraging and scaling our lives and our businesses. But I have to tell you something, that is not what keeps people stuck. That's not what hits these ceilings for people. What hits their capacity and what limits their ability to grow beyond what the outside sees is always, in working with some of the world's highest performers, it is always a combination of emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning that keep us circling that same drain instead of actually moving forward and through the things that we care about in our life. And so what I would deplore upon everybody who's listening is if you aren't finding the space and time to be able to invest in yourself, or you aren't creating it, what is the trigger that's behind that? Right? What I'm a big believer on, and we won't go deep on this given the format of the show today, but I'm a big believer that it is important for every single one of us to understand where our triggers are. Because when I say triggers, I'm talking about unprocessed, unhealed, or things that are coming back and recycling in your life in a way that may not actually be moving you forward. So for example, I've dealt with shame and I've dealt with anger at a very deep level, right? And in both of those situations, a great example of how this can happen based on a trigger that can create resistance and energy drain in our worlds and businesses and lives and relationships is something as simple as my wife, who used to say, "Hey babe, what are we gonna do with the kids this weekend?" Totally innocent question, but my shame filter would cause me to hear this. "Hey honey, you've not done enough to be a good husband and father recently, so what are you going to do to make up for it this weekend, because you owe it to us?" Not what she said, but what my shame filter caused me to hear. So what would happen, right? I'm defensive around that because I carry a lot of pride in that being my top role. So my chest would puff and I'd all of a sudden have to defend, and I'd rattle off the 10 things I'd done in the last 4 days to show that I'm a good husband and father. How often, though, do we do that in our lives and businesses? It's not just in our personal relationships. How often do we have some conflict at home, some pressure or scarcity around money, or the ability to make payroll, or the ability to actually leverage and scale opportunities in our business, and we carry that energy back into the interactions in our teams, with our associates, with our clients, with our communities, because we don't see ourselves clearly enough to recognize that when we react, we're creating damage. And whenever there's damage that exists, we need to seek repair. And so part of what we talk about is that we've got to become aware of these emotional triggers. We need to learn how to own them. And again, I break those down into way more detail in other ways. But then we have to get to the root of what those emotions are, right? Have you ever done weeding in your life, my friend? Have you ever had to pull weeds out of the ground ever?
Absolutely. Did it yesterday.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm in upstate New York.
Okay. So you probably have a little bit more moisture there, whereas in the Southwest, we have concrete ground. Okay.
Right.
But
no, we have a lot of weeds, especially in the spring. A lot of weeds.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You can actually see them grow. Right. Yeah.
Do they grow up through the cracks in the concrete ever?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you do when that happens?
I cry. No, Well, I'll try to pick them, or sometimes I'll use one of those weed killers.
Yeah. And the weed killer might be effective, but that also assumes that the killer is going to go all the way down to the bottom of the root. Because even with weed killer, when we pick off the top or we do that, the weed keeps growing back, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or if you get weeds in your lawn and you're not wanting to really pay attention to doing the proper treatment, you might just be like, well, they're green, I'll just mow over them.
Right.
For us back in Arizona, the ground is literally like concrete. So literally, like trying to pull a weed out, it's a far shot to get that root out.
Right.
But it's no different with our emotions. Because if the root still exists, the weed continues to grow. But we're taught in our life not to feel, to show up with a smile on, to move fast with less effort. And so we aren't taught to actually understand this. So we have to get to the root source of these emotions so that we can start to see ourselves clearly so that we can move. And in the movement phase, that's how we move through them, because we start to understand, how do these things actually move through us? How do they move through our world? And how do we move through them? So what I would argue is, look, we rattle out strategies and tactics. We create all of these plans for a lot of the clients that we work with. But after we have clarity on where their biggest blocks are, because the reality of it is, if we don't remove those blocks, remove those triggers, and allow themselves to see that the patterns have recreated themselves multiple times in their lives and businesses, then they can't ever get off that hamster wheel that they're trying to escape. And so I believe that every single business owner and human being would be in the greatest level of benefit to invest in raising your level of self-awareness and to realize the things that actually keep us stuck, because it's not the external factors, it's the internal game.
That's big. That's big. So that goes really to embracing the pain.
That's a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that
embracing pain can exist in a variety of ways, but yes, that's a part of embracing pain, is to escape the suffering of unhealed, unprocessed things and those patterns and how they impact your life, impact opportunity cost, growth, and where you can head. That's the suffering that will exist if you don't embrace the pain of putting yourself in a position to feel long enough to heal.
Yeah. What's the most, is there kind of a quote unquote most common issue that entrepreneurs will have when they come to you for coaching?
One of the biggest core emotions that we see and have to work through, and it manifests differently for all of them, is shame. Okay. And I think there's a whole variety of reasons for that. I think we live in a toxic shame-based society in a lot of ways. I think that there's lots of things that continue to be patterned into us, but shame also has two talk tracks. And to me, it's the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, because it presents itself as about 15 different emotions, right? Control, perfectionism, scarcity, all of these pieces, defensiveness, like all start to come in. Anxiety, stress can all be manifested through this. Anger can be a secondary emotion of shame. And so there's two talk tracks to shame. I always have to credit Brene Brown for helping me understand this, because I was deeply impacted, but I never identified with it because I didn't know the second path. It's I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough, which is where most people live. And I'd be lying if I didn't have moments that lived there, but it wasn't my predominant narrative. But over here on this side, it's when you shut that down, you go in the arena and you're ready to go to battle. It's, who do you think you are? The reality of it is the bigger I lived, the more successful things that I did, the more I felt the need to apologize for every one of them or pull the throttle back in my life. Because as I lived bigger, I made other people feel small. And then that brought an energy into me that would tap my shame and make me feel like who I was either not in alignment or didn't fit within the box that the world had created for me.
Yeah.
But shame comes through in scarcity. Shame comes through in leadership. Shame comes through in communication. Shame comes through in cultural development. Shame comes through in our ability to attract and receive money and resources into our business. It comes through in our ability to literally have established healthy relationships that we can create true human connection for ourselves and have a ripple effect through our world. Shame is truly so damaging. And there's lots of cultures in society that create shame. Think about it. From the time we're born as our most bright, burning, authentic light we will ever be. And then what happens from the time we're yay big, our parents, teachers, employers, and coaches start saying, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, you should be this, you shouldn't be that, you should want this, you shouldn't want that, you should have this amount of money, you shouldn't want this amount of money, you should make this amount, but nope, nope, nope. And so all we're told, again, here's the really clear part, should is a shame-based word, because it implies that whoever you are or whatever you're doing isn't good enough. So we start going down this path that the world is building for us until we fit inside the box of who the world has told us who to be. And we've established so many layers of pain internally and concentric layers of armor to protect ourselves as a result of it, that all of a sudden we're living in this sheltered box of who we once were before the world told us who to be.
Right.
And so this is a byproduct of why I chased all the what's of the world. What house, what car, what amount of money, what amount of success? Because that's what was conditioned into me from the external factors of the world. And guess what? I had all the what's I ever wanted by the time I was 27.
Yeah.
But I paid the ultimate expense because it cost me who I was. Now going through this process of healing my pain, shedding my layers of armor, and getting back to the core of who I am, I'm now in a position and teaching others that when I'm very aligned with who I am, who I'm doing this for, who I'm doing this with, and who I'm going to impact, and I've built that timeline and understanding of myself so that I can be the observer and participant in my life real time, then all of a sudden I'm putting myself in a position where all the what's in my world are a manifestation of who I am versus the other way around. It's way more powerful.
Yeah. You talk about how, at age, what you said, age 27, you changed. What about what happened with the accident? The arm coming off, almost dying. You think your life, or maybe I should say, how different do you think your life would be if that never happened?
Oh, I wouldn't take it back for a second, because
Yeah.
what it gave me was perspective, and perspective points us at what's important.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had the ability to understand all the dynamics of where and how this all shapes in the human experience. I understand the difference and balance between mental toughness and emotional resiliency, and our importance to understand and regulate between both.
Yeah.
You see, when I shut off physical pain because it exceeded my ability to cope when I was at that age, I shut off emotional pain for 25 years and didn't realize how much that held me back.
Yeah.
I also was in a position, though, from very early where shame was being brought in, because in the core of the human experience, we all seek and desire a few things. We all want to be safe. We all want to be protected. Those aren't the same thing. We all want to be seen and understood, and we all wouldn't be connected. The reality of it is that those two things at the end that we all seek and desire the most don't exist unless the first two do.
Right.
So what would happen? I'd come out of the hospital. I had my arm in a sling with a teddy bear in between. And inevitably, as a 7 and 8 year old, everybody would say, "Hey, what happened? What happened to your arm?" Expecting me to say, "Well, I was playing with my buddies on the jingle gym and I fell off and crashed. Oh man, I flew off the swing. I crashed my bike. I whatever," right? But I would look at them owning my own truth, just deadpan, because to me it was matter of fact. And I'd say I was run over by a truck and my arm was torn off. Got really used to seeing jaws hit the ground.
Right.
And then an immediate pause because of the
silence.
disbelief. And then they would turn and look at my parents for validation.
Yeah.
Not believing my own truth.
Yeah. Is he full of
So
baloney?
from
Right?
7, 8, 9, and 10, I got really used to the fact that the world wasn't going to view me, see me, and understand me, which made me feel disconnected, which also caused all these walls that went up. And armor, we've got this whole concept around armor that we unpack as well, because genuinely, I believe that when we protect ourselves, we raise our armor and we prevent the ability for us to be seen and understood and be connected. So what we think is protecting us the most is actually preventing us from having the level of connection in life and ourselves that we desire.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. Very powerful. No, the reason I asked that question, because, I wonder if that accident did not happen, you might have just been a very successful insurance person or insurance salesman or who knows, but it's like that happened for, as I say, it happened, for you, right? Now and for us, for the world. If you're going to impact 1 billion people, then it sounds weird to say, but thank you, truck driver, right? I mean, like, you are making.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Honestly, like I'm a big believer that every single thing that we are put through is preparing us for what's next.
Yeah.
And
Hallelujah.
every part of my path, even though it wasn't fun in those moments, and some of these painful processes of healing certainly weren't great and fun, but where I am and where I'm going and the impact that follows it, this is way bigger than me, brother.
Yeah.
And it always has been.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that that's what I can really stay centered in, is that like everything that I'm doing now is in alignment with who I am. It is a manifestation of who I am, but it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me at all.
Yeah.
It's about who we're going to impact.
Yeah.
And so if I had to carry that weight, if I had to become the practitioner of pain and understand how to heal through these things, to create these modalities and pathways to talk about stuff that most people aren't even talking about in the world right now, but it's so essential for every single one of us to elevate and empower ourselves to live the best lives possible. And oh, by the way, to have the most successful, sustainable, curated businesses possible. The reality of it is it's like, yeah, all of it happened for a reason. I wouldn't take it back in a heartbeat. In fact, I wished that I would have had the level of healing that I have now in time to be able to talk to the driver of that truck, because I know that he lived the rest of his life in turmoil and suffering because of the regret that he carried over a mistake that took place in a half a second.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to just let him know that he doesn't need to worry about that anymore. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And that I could alleviate the burden for him. I was never given that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so that's something now that I can also pay attention to. If my truth allows others to live theirs, because I think suffering comes in 4 places: the things that are left unsaid, the things that we lack permission to feel or say, the things we lack the words to articulate, or the things that are left undone. And so if by me sharing my experience or highlighting the experiences of others, for the world, what that does, it gives people permission to feel and say things that they wouldn't otherwise, because the world has told us that we can't feel and think and process in that way. And it's given them words to articulate sometimes their own unique experience with which they've not been able to explain externally. All of those things relieve the level of suffering and reduce it within people. And so I think all of it's full circle.
Yeah. Brian, you're one of the most impactful, most delivering such value, that one of the happiest, I think, persons I've ever met. So very glad that Ben Albert, thank you, Ben, for introducing us. I'm very glad that I got to meet you. Very glad you were born, and I truly appreciate you doing what you're doing for the world. You're doing great work, and sharing some heartbeats with me today. Really impactful interview here, and I thank you for that. If people want to get to know you more, books, podcasts, just website, give it all.
If you're social media, I'm at Bogert Brian on all channels. If you are website, you can go to brianbogert.com. It'll be an entry point into all of our worlds and all of our businesses, because we don't just do coaching. And the reality of it is that if there are people who are looking to be a part of something, we've also launched and are developing a community. You're welcome to DM me on any of those things, or shoot us an email to give you more information if you'd like to learn more. It is a private group where we create a safe space. And with your permission, I do have a gift for everybody as well.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to give a full disclosure on the gift, because I want to make sure that everybody always has complete transparency. This is not a funnel. This is a course that we've created. It's got over 30 minutes of video content that talks about a lot of the entry points leading into our world, all the way through the first chapter of our entire course that we sell and all of our coaching clients get. But here's the deal. Yeah, I get your email in exchange for you getting access to the course. Yes, you'll get a handful of emails from me through your process of completing the course, and you will get 4 emails at the end to outline other opportunities to engage further. I'm telling you all that with complete disclosure, because there's personalized touch in each one of them. But I also want you to know that if it doesn't move you, if it doesn't change you, I don't care if you don't choose to purchase it. What I ask is that you either give feedback if you don't move beyond it, or if you felt connected to it and aren't in a position to purchase, just move it through the world. Because again, move people, move people. This is our attempt to be transparent and clear. You're not going to be in a forever funnel where you're going to be spammed and bullied. This is going to be an area where, again, you will be safe and protected, even in your course of trying to invest in yourself.
Awesome. Well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. Very transparent. So, Brian, thanks again. Wish you continued massive success doing what you're doing. And thanks again for being on the show.
David, thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And thank you, Gonzo family, for listening to another great. This is one of the best episodes we've had. Really, really appreciate you sharing some heartbeats with us today, too. You can always catch a new episode every Wednesday morning on all of your favorite podcast app. Thanks again, Brian. Thanks again, everybody. Make sure to have a great day and stay awesome.